So I think I want to, it's not really a question, but kind of more of the media. I think you guys give it a break a little bit when you stop at just the debate. I think the bigger issue is even what happened after the debate. The 3 weeks after the debate, they were like the greatest media of all time with how they handled Democrats and how they pressured them. But then as soon as Joe Biden dropped out, he was George Washington, and he was the greatest and, one of the best presidents for the selfless act that he did. And I just feel like, yeah, I know Jake Tapper is going to be on Megyn Kelly, and if I had research and had time, I would go and look up clips of how he handled those 3 weeks and then how he handled up to the election, because I almost feel like that's more of the malpractice from the media.
Yeah, you're completely right. Their behavior afterwards almost looked like they were trying to clean up again so that the Democrats could win. It had nothing to do with what was best for the country, or for that matter, just relaying facts and information to the American people, which last I checked is what the media is supposed to do. And also, let's not forget what they were doing for the 3 weeks leading up to the debate, where we had the trip for the D-Day celebrations, for the G8 summit, the Juneteenth concert in DC, and the fundraiser, the infamous George Clooney fundraiser. Whenever people on my side of the equation, right of center media, pointed out what everyone could see with their obvious eyes, we were told we were propagandists, we were liars, we were engaging in cheap fakes, and the media ran with that narrative from Karine Jean-Pierre instead of actually examining the facts. The media comes out in no way the winner in any of this.
Dan.
Nothing on Larry. He's 100% right on that.
Yeah.
Josh, you're absolutely right. I mean, it is remarkable that once he dropped out, everybody kind of moved on. And then there were people raising questions: should he still be president? In fact, there was a fear on the right that if Harris became a sitting president, it might actually kind of lift up her stature.
But the press wasn't doing it.
No, exactly. That's my point. It was all on the right, but they just kind of pushed him aside. And I've said this at the time, and I'll say it again. It is stunning that from November 6th until January 20th, Donald Trump was essentially the president. I mean, both traveling abroad, whenever anything happened, Joe Biden, until those last 10 days, basically disappeared. And it was unbelievable.
And if I could jump in on one more thing on that, it's like, who was running the White House? I know that the joke is that Joe Biden used the auto pen for everything, but that's not true. He didn't use the auto pen. Someone else did.
He was running the White House.
Yeah.
He was running the White House. This is where I caution people on the right. Stay inside the lane here about what we know about Biden's infirmity. He was running the White House.
How do you know that? I mean, what's the objective source on that?
Because people on the right want to say Obama was running the White House the same way they wanted to say that Michelle Obama was going to be the nominee.
I'm not saying anybody was. I'm asking who was.
Here's what I can tell you. I could give you 100 stories about Biden making decisions. 100. You can give me you cannot give me a single story about someone else running the White House. Not one. I don't believe. If you could, you would have reported it before. And Biden had many good moments. He gave the State of the Union address. He had many good moments. He was not consistently out of it. So he had enough good moments to run it. Now, was he running it 24/7? No. But they allowed him to make his decisions in the time frames when he could. So until someone produces a single story of someone saying, well, the president can't decide this because he's in the corner drooling, so Ron Klain's going to tell the Pentagon to fire some missiles, or Jeff Zients or Barack Obama. Until there's one of those stories, I think it is wrong and dangerous and deleterious to the interests of the right, who'd like to highlight Biden's mental acuity and all the issues that are true, to pretend that we know that Biden wasn't running the White House. There's no evidence of it. None.
All right, if I could,
yes, sir.
If it's accepted fact now in conventional wisdom that there was no way that Joe Biden had the mental acuity and the wherewithal to be a candidate for president, then is it?
That's not the case.
I thought that was I thought that was the entire thesis of this book that Tapper is pushing right now.
Well, it's up to the It's up to the voters. It's up to. I mean, the thesis, he had severe mental decline going back to at least 2017. That's not in dispute. But that doesn't mean other people were making the decisions. Those aren't the same thing.
So if he didn't have the capability to run for president, he did have the capability of being president.
Well,
That's
I
what
think,
we're
yeah,
that's
I
what
mean,
we're
I
supposed to accept.
I don't know what you mean by having the capability. He had good moments and bad moments. Someone who has good moments and bad moments should not be running for president, and they shouldn't be president. But
They
that
shouldn't be.
doesn't mean that the mechanisms of the White House decision making accommodated that by allowing others to make presidential
Okay,
decisions.
one more, and then I'll let Dan in here. If that's the case, and I'll go ahead and accept that premise, then isn't it incumbent on the Biden administration, whatever's left of the people who still align themselves with that presidency, to explain exactly what did go on during the bad days?
I don't know what you mean by incumbent. I don't know what you mean by incumbent. They should.
Well, I think that they owe the
They
American
should.
people an
Well,
explanation.
I
It's like,
think it would be-
we all agree he had bad days, so this is what we did when we had bad days.
I think it would be good if they did, and I think one of the many issues I have with this book coming out next week is they purport to expose the cover up. As far as I can tell, there's nothing in the book that addresses the question you just raised.
Yeah.
I think what will come out, because I do think whoever is the first or the second staffer to write the tell-all is going to make a lot of money, just to be really blunt about it. And I think there is an incentive to put their kids through college and buy their dream beach house. I think what Larry, they probably like. I think what Mark is trying to say is, if you run for office, right, it is a stamina, it's an endurance test. You got to give interviews, town halls, etc. Right? Biden couldn't do that. So as a candidate, he was terrible. I don't think Biden, Trump seems to be up around 5 a.m. and seems to go to bed around like 1 a.m. Right? And I think people can come to him throughout the day, sir, we need this, we need that, right? And he'll do what he does. I believe it's kind of pretty apparent that Biden functions between like 11 and 4, right? And like maybe even between like 11 and 2 was when he was sharpest, right? Sharp enough that he could make decisions. He had calls with world leaders, where he was cognizant enough to make a decision. What we don't know is, was there a decision that needed to be made at 5 p.m. that got kicked to the next day or 2 days later because he was having a bad day?
And that's the standard.
But
but
no,
it
it's
isn't
not the standard.
somebody
But
else
it might have
made
been.
it. It's that they delayed making the decision.
Exactly
I think,
correct.
I think.
And Larry, just to be clear,
And it's
I'm
not
not saying
good. Not
I'm
good
not
at
saying
all.
you're wrong. I'm open to.
And Josh, thanks
if
for the
Barack
question.
Obama was faxing in instructions about running the government, or Rahm Emanuel, I'm open to that. I'm just saying, to assert it when there's not a single piece of evidence that what's happened,
Well,
I think is wrong. It's
I
just
didn't
wrong to do.
I didn't assert. I was asking who was running the White House.
Well,
now, if the answer is Joe Biden, then great. But I need to see
you're
some
right.
evidence.
You're right. You're right.
Forgive me
But
for being
you're
a
right,
little
but I've
raw
heard-
on this issue,
No.
because I had to suffer through panel discussion after panel discussion after panel discussion based on Trump 45 being incapable of being president. We had
Understood.
psychologists diagnosing
I know.
him on Jake
I hear you.
Tapp's show, so.
You technically did ask us a question, so I apologize for suggesting otherwise. But the way you asked it is the way people on the right ask it all the time, and it conjures up the concept that it's true. We just need to get to the bottom of it.
Wow.
Joshua,
It's a
thank you.
talent. I'm
I hear you.
Yeah.
I know. Joshua, thank you
who
for
knew?
being here.
You just kicked it up.
Thank
right?
you. Thank you, sir.
That was a delicious video experience. I think you'll agree. Now, what you need to do in return for getting to enjoy that is hit the subscribe button, be part of the two-way community, never miss a thing.